Welcome back everybody to linuxacademy.com. My name is Terry, and in today's video we continue our exploration of Nginx, the warp-powered web server. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and the first thing, as with any exploration of a new technology, is to get it installed and configured on our system and start taking a look at what it entails. So for Nginx, what you're going to want to do, we're working within a CentOS system. Specifically, we're on CentOS 6, but I will give you the CentOS 7 equivalent commands as they differ from what we might be doing. So very similar for any distribution, just make sure you add the repository that contains the version and the application that you want installed. In our case, for CentOS 6 and CentOS 7, we'll need to add the EPEL or EPEL repository for us to begin and complete our installation of Nginx and everything it entails. So if you just do a Google search or you go to the Fedora project, you'll find the EPEL repository RPM that you need to download. In our case, we've already done that, so we're just going to do a paste on the command that we get from the Fedora project. As you can see right here, the download location is dl.fedoraproject.org, and in my case, it's pub EPEL 6 versus EPEL 7. Keep in mind that with CentOS 7, there is only a 64-bit version simply because CentOS 7 has discontinued support for 32-bit operating system versions. For CentOS 6, there is still a version for 32-bit, but in our case, we're 64. So we're simply going to log into our Linux Academy server, which we have already done. I'd suggest that you do a yum update before you do anything else, whether you're working locally on a virtual or physical host, or you're working in your Linux Academy lab server. In our case, that's what we're doing here. And we've already run the yum update, which has updated our system to the latest base repository version. And if we do a cat on Etsy issue, we can see that we're actually running CentOS release 6.6, which is the final release expected for CentOS 6.6 other than security releases. So we've downloaded our EPEL repository file. All we're going to do is an rpm-uvh, so that if we already have EPEL installed, we should then just be updating it. So if we do a yum repo list, in our case, we don't have that many repos installed, so we'll see that we have EPEL and a number of others installed. If you are on a system where you have a bunch of them installed, you can just do a yum repo list and grep for EPEL or whomever you happen to be looking for. At this point, we haven't actually updated our system since we've installed the new EPEL repository, so we're going to do that real quick, and it actually should just pull the cached database repo list files down, and nothing should need to be updated. So luckily, once you have EPEL installed and available in your repository list, installing Nginx is as simple as doing a yum install on Nginx, and it'll pull down a bunch of stuff that Nginx requires, some libraries, free type, JPEG, other things that would all equally be pulled down for Apache, but it'll also pull down a couple of things that are unique to Nginx, like the GeoIP function and the Nginx file system itself. So this doesn't take very long to finish the install, so we're going to just let this complete while we're talking about Nginx. So once we have Nginx installed, we're going to set the configuration so that the daemon starts on startup. And for CentOS 7 systems, that would be a systemctl or systemctl enable on nginx.service. And for our system, we're going to do a check config on Nginx and on. That tells it to start the Nginx service every time I've rebooted my system in all run levels. Finally, we're going to simply turn on Nginx by starting the service. Now, let's go ahead and install a text-based web browser so that we can make it simple to do any tests for configurations that we have going forward. And I'm also going to show you the external browser, since our Linux Academy server has a DNS entry for ourselves, and we should be able to verify that Nginx is running. So if we do a yum install, and I tend to use Lynx for my text-based web processing. Lynx is just a simple text-based or ncurses-based web browser, and we've used that. If you've taken any of my classes on Linux Academy for almost anything, we've used links whenever we've dealt with Apache or any other web service. So now if we just do a links on HTTP and localhost, we should now see the default Nginx web page, which we see here. So we have our web server that has been started up for Nginx. So let's go ahead and drop out of that, and we're going to take a couple of quick looks at some configuration setup files that we're going to be changing in future videos. So for Nginx, much like Apache, our key directory is in Etsy, and it happens to be the Nginx directory itself. And the directory setup you'll see is very similar to Apache or other web services that you're probably a little bit more familiar with. There's a conf.d directory and a default.d directory, and our most important configuration file is going to be in conf.d, and it's going to be the default.conf, ssl.conf, and virtual.conf. So these are configuration files for the default website, the SSL configuration, and the virtual, the vhost configuration. But the most important file for our configuration is going to be the Nginx conf file itself. So if we just do a cat on this, we'll see something that looks similar to configuration files that we've seen before, where it sets up where error logs are, how many worker processes we have set up, the number of connections, the HTTP, how it handles HTTP requests, and how it handles keep alives, and where it loads its configuration files from. We're going to make some changes to those configuration files so that it's a little more exported and consistent with what you've used in various distributions. We'll talk about how to change those files so that we can import virtual hosts externally. And finally, the default location for our HTML configuration, at least after installation, is user share Nginx in HTML. And then you'll see the Nginx logo and the index file for Nginx. So this is just the default installation and configuration. We've taken a look at some of the important directories and files, and in subsequent videos we're going to dive in and start making some changes that kind of harden and make a standard website configuration out of our Nginx installation. That's all there is to it. My name is Terry for Linux Academy.